Hello folks, it's Duchess again. Welcome to one of my videos. Just here in Grimsby. It's January 2023. I've entitled this one The Ghosts of Lincolnshire Road Car in Grimsby. We're going to have a look at a couple of the premises that the Lincolnshire Road Car bus company used. I'm here at the site of the former Brighowgate bus station. You can see the main building is still preserved in bus station days. As you can see there were toilets in there, there was a waiting room, there was a left luggage office, and there was a cafe. There was everything you could possibly need before you started a bus journey. You can see through there it's been gated off because it's obviously not in bus use anymore. There were stands down this side. They've been boxed in at the front there. In bus station days they would have been open, just stood in and the bus would have pulled into the curb and you'd have got on and off. So they were open fronted. As you can see, it's like a V shape to make it easy for the buses to turn round. They would have come off the stand there and then turned round. You can see the other stands just across there. Just walk past the building here. As you can see, we're not far from Grimsby Town Station. There's a Class 185 just across there, just setting off from its Grimsby Town stop. So it was very convenient for the railway station. Let's have a look at the old building there as well. It's now in use by a taxi company, as you can see. And again on the other side you've got the old bus stands here, which have been had fronts built into them. Again, they would have been open fronted when it was a bus station, but they've been blocked in so that they can be used as offices and things like that. You can see a bit down there. It's not actually in use at the moment. But yeah, very nice to see this has been preserved and has found a new use. It's nice to see structures like this still surviving. What I'm going to do now, I'll just show you another couple of shots of the old bus station. Again, you can see Grimsby Town Station just across the road there. So very, very close to the bus station. What I'm going to do now is I'll take you around to the former Lincolnshire Road Car bus garage. Just a last look across the road there at the former bus station. You can see the footbridge over the Railway level crossing there. Just as I'm walking around to the old bus garage, I'll give you a bit of history about Lincolnshire Road Car. It was formed in 1928. It was another company renamed. I believe they were called Silver Queen, but they renamed it Lincolnshire Road Car in 1928. In 1929 it became part of the Tilling Group, which was a large, privately owned, at that point, group of bus companies. Over the years, the various railway companies came to own quite a few of the shares. So I've got Alfred the border collie with me, who's just stopped to sniff something. Yeah, the railway companies came to own quite a few of the shares in Tilling Group. But in 1948, the railway companies were nationalised and the shares that they held in the Tilling Group passed to the government under the guise of the British Transport Commission. In 1949, Tilling sold the remainder of their shares to the British Transport Commission and became fully nationalised. There was another big bus group at the time which was privately owned, the BET Group, British Electric Traction, which, as the name suggests, had started off running trams. In 1967 they sold out to the British Transport Commission. They became nationalised as well. And in 1969 the British Transport Commission lumped together Tilling and BET to form the National Bus Company, so they became the new parents of Lincolnshire Road Car. All through the Tilling and National era, the Lincolnshire Road Car traded as Lincolnshire. The name on the side of the buses was Lincolnshire. In Tilling days they were green and cream, and in National Bus Company days they were green and white. When bus deregulation came along in 1986 and privatisation was promised, they rebranded as Road Car. They started sticking the name Road Car on the side of the buses, and they changed the livery to green and yellow, although white made a bit of a comeback later on. They became green, yellow and white. It wasn't a very financially healthy company, particularly in National Bus Company days. They covered a vast area. They ran from the south bank of the Humber, so places like New Holland and Barton-on-Humber, along to Goole, although Goole's in Yorkshire. They had a Lincolnshire Road Car depot there, and then down through Newark and Grantham, all the way to Stamford, Goole obviously in Yorkshire, Newark in Nottinghamshire, but they both had Lincolnshire Road Car garages. As I say, down to Stamford and across through Boston to Skegness and all the way up the east coast through Grimsby and Cleethorpes. So they covered a vast area. They had services that ran from 1981 when the Humber Bridge opened to Hull, and then they also ran to Doncaster, Nottingham and to Kings Lynn in Norfolk. But if you look on a map at that area, you'll realise 99% of it is just open fields. There's not a lot there. There's only a few small towns and villages. Wherever they encountered a big town, they didn't have it to themselves, generally speaking. Around here in Grimsby and Cleethorpes, the services were run by Grimsby Corporation and Cleethorpes Corporation. And then in 1957 they amalgamated their transport departments. The two councils just had one between them that was jointly administered. It was called Grimsby Cleethorpes Transport. And again, when bus deregulation came along, they rebranded as GCT, but they ran the town services in Grimsby and Cleethorpes. In the city of Lincoln, Lincoln Corporation ran the city services, and indeed in national bus days there were restrictions on Lincolnshire Road Car. The buses couldn't set down within the city on the way out of the city, and if they were coming back in they couldn't pick up, so it protected the local traffic for Lincoln Corporation. Newark had an independent operator, W. Gash and Sons. Grantham had Reliance of Great Gonnerby. They had some of the local services. The only place they got close to having a monopoly was Scunthorpe. The town services there, the steelworks services, and also the out of town. But even then, there were other companies. Hornsby's and UB ran on the Ashby service alongside Lincolnshire Road Car, and some of the steelworks contracts were run by other firms such as Holloway's, and Black and White I think had some contracts there, and Trent Motors, so they did have a little bit of competition there. So it wasn't a very healthy company financially. We're just looking at the old Grimsby depot, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. But yeah, for a period of the late 70s and the early 80s, they didn't even warrant their own general manager. They came under the general manager of East Yorkshire Motor Services in Hull. And they didn't have a full back office team either. Some of the functions such as payroll and things were dealt with at Hull as well. In the run-up to privatisation, they were given their own general manager and a full back office team, because obviously you couldn't sell to the private sector a company that didn't have a full managerial team. But yeah, it was a pretty dire situation. When deregulation happened, they cut back massively to try and become profitable. They withdrew from Boston and the South Fens completely, and they closed a lot of depots, one of which was this. Now this depot opened in 1955, and it replaced one at Cleethorpes that was Lincolnshire Road Cars, and it replaced one round the corner, and I'll show you the site of the one round the corner before long. Until 1950, Lincolnshire Road Car didn't have much of a presence in Grimsby and Cleethorpes. They ran to Louth, and that was about it. The main bulk of the services were provided by a company called Enterprise and Silver Dawn. They were based in Scunthorpe, that was the main depot, but they had a depot here in Grimsby, and they also had depots at Immingham and New Holland. In 1950, the British Transport Commission bought Enterprise and Silver Dawn and decided, rather than keeping it as a separate subsidiary, they would lump it in with Lincolnshire Road Car. So that gave them more of a presence, and then in 1955 they built this depot on Duchess Street to replace the one at Cleethorpes that was Lincolnshire Road Cars, and the one round the corner that was Enterprise and Silver Dawns. This depot closed in 1987. It was one of the cutbacks, but luckily they retained ownership of it, because about a year later it reopened. Because Lincolnshire Road Cars' financial performance was so bad, nobody wanted to buy it when it came to privatisation. Eventually it was sold to Yorkshire Traction of Barnsley to become part of the Traction Group, as they called it. And apparently it was sold for £1. It was such, the performance of it was that bad. It was sold for £1. And even then, the boss of Traction Group, Frank Carter, career busman, everybody in the industry said he was balmy. You know, he shouldn't have bought it, he would never make it pay, but he did. One of the things they did was reopen this depot in 1988. In the meantime, when it had been closed, the Lincolnshire Road Car still ran the Grimsby to Louth service, but that was run from Louth depot rather than being joint between Louth and Grimsby as it had been. And then they also ran to Hull, but they gave Louth depot the Hull runs, so some of them started back from Louth. When this depot reopened, they took back a share of the Louth service, and they also ran most of the hull services from here. Louth did retain a couple of workings because they kept the Louth hull journey, but they also launched a competitive assault on GCT with town services. They ran the G3, which was Grimsby to Nunsthorpe. They ran on the 5 to Bradley Park. Probably the most intense competition was the 16, which went from Asda through Grimsby Town Centre to the Willows Estate and then on to Wybers Wood. Both GCT and Lincolnshire Road Car at one point were running every 10 minutes, so there were 12 buses an hour on that route. To give you some idea, nowadays the Willows has 4 buses an hour and Wybers Wood has 2, so that's how many extra buses there were. In 1994, GCT was sold to Stagecoach. The 2 councils sold it to Stagecoach Group, and Stagecoach weren't the kind of company that you wanted to upset. They could quite easily flood a place with extra buses and staff. So they had talks with Roadcar, and they came to an arrangement to operate jointly on some of the town services. The G3 continued to be a Roadcar operation. It went a different way to Nunsthorpe than the Stagecoach services did. But things like the 5 and the 16, they were jointly operated. So for example, the 16, it ran every 10 minutes. There was a Stagecoach bus every 20, and there was a Roadcar bus in between. So they ran it between them. As the 90s went on and the early 2000s, Roadcar reduced their presence on town services to the point where they only ran the 16. As I said, they still had the Louth service. They ran a service from Grimsby to Lincoln. They also ran to Hull, and they had a service up through Immingham to Barton-on-Humber as well. So they did run other things. But Frank Carter was beyond retirement age, so in December 2005 he sold the traction group fully to Stagecoach. In June 2006 this depot closed again. The buses were moved up to the Stagecoach depot, the former GCT site in Victoria Street. So it closed again. It was retained by Stagecoach. They tried to sell it in 2008, but they didn't manage to, so they kept it. And then in the coronavirus pandemic in 2020 it reopened. When the schools reopened, they brought social distancing in on buses. They needed to run extra buses to fit the school children on. So what they did, the megabus express bus services had been suspended for the period of lockdown. They brought some spare coaches from that in. Victoria Street couldn't accommodate them, so they reopened this building, and it was used as an operational depot for a while until social distancing ceased, and it's gone back to its slumbers. At various points it has been used to store withdrawn buses, but I don't even think they do that with it now. You can see on the wall here this sign. If I zoom in on it, that's a National Bus Company logo. So that's survived remarkably well. As I said, it was sold to the private sector in 1988 with Lincolnshire Road Car, but it ceased using the National Bus Company emblem from 1986, so that's survived for 37 years after they ceased using it. So we'll have a little bit of a walk around the garage site. You can see it is still maintained. It's boarded up, but they do still keep an eye on it. Somebody broke one of the boards off a few weeks ago. Within a couple of days it had been replaced again. Just go across the road so we can get a better shot of it. I'll just go around the other side of it as well. So you see it's been like a boiler house type thing here. You can see the chimney there. And then presumably offices and things like that here, staff facilities. Just across the road there is a disused Garden Street signal box. There is a video on that on my channel as well. So if you're into disused railway artefacts, then check that one out. You can see that would probably have been like a travel shop or an inquiry office where the public could go in. See, it's got the large kind of display window. And then just down the other side of the garage there. So yeah, it was nice in 2020 to see this brought back into use. I like to see these old garages and things. It's you know, it's always nice to see investment in the industry and, you know, protecting the future, but the modern facilities don't have the character of these old ones, like the bus station we've just seen, and like this garage. And then we're back around the other side of it. Incidentally, this bit of the car park that is next to the garage, this was the outside parking area for the garage as well. They couldn't fit all the buses allocated here inside, so they used to park some of them outside. I'll just finish off by wandering round. And there you go, another look at the National Bus Company logo. So I'll just walk around the corner now and I'll show you the site of the Enterprise and Silver Dawn garage. As I hope my videos are showing you, there is a lot of transport interest around here. It was a fascinating area for transport, whether that's buses, trains or trams. And there are still some very interesting relics of the former era. What there isn't is a lot of information. Because this area is quite out on a limb, people haven't really bothered with it traditionally, and it's often hard to find even basic facts. And one of the things was the Enterprise and Silver Dawn garage. I've never seen a photograph of it. Eventually, after much looking on the internet and in books, I managed to find a description of where it was, and it was here where these flats are. It was on the corner of Garden Street, Ainsley Street, Doughty Road and Abbey Road. So it would have been here. Now, there was some confusion caused, which I'll explain to you in a moment, because I'll take you around the corner. So yeah, this was the site of the garage. Just in there, you can see a bit of an old wall alongside this terraced house. Presumably that was the boundary wall of it. But what caused me confusion was just across the road from that area is this building, which is now ATS tyres. As you can see, it looks like an old bus garage. Just ignore the modern fronts at the top. Obviously that's been put over the original front. But yeah, if you look at that and these substantial bollards here, it looks like an old bus garage building. You can imagine a bus parked, but apparently it never was. It must have been a car garage originally. If you pan round, you can see just beyond the end of the terraced houses, that's the site of the Enterprise and Silver Dawn garage on the corner. What finally clinched it was the written description said it was only big enough for 2 buses. As you can see, this building would have been bigger than that. So, but yeah, it's often hard to find information. But this apparently wasn't the Enterprise and Silver Dawn garage. It was across the road. So I hope you enjoyed that quick look at the remnants of Lincolnshire Road Car in this area. As usual, thank you for joining me and Alfie, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.